The morning it happened, I was teaching my kettle patience. It's a small ritual I perform when the day is too quiet. I set the kettle on the back burner, not the front. The front doesn't forgive, and I say out loud, "We'll get there," as if the water and I are a team. The steam thread began to rise, slim and deliberate, and I leaned my hip against the counter, pleased with how soft the light made even the crumbs look. People who've lived a long time learn to appreciate soft light. It's kinder to the truth. The computer chimed. Not the pleasant little dings that mean a cousin posted another photo of her dog dressed like a philosopher. No. This was the stern chime. A new email sliding into the folder. I've labeled important in all caps because sometimes even I need to play schoolteacher with myself. I wiped my hands on the towel with the embroidered lemons, the one that refuses to absorb anything but looks cheerful doing it, and I sat down. Subject: password changed. Online banking. My face did that thing faces do when they think the world is kidding. You know it. The small, polite frown that looks around the room for the hidden camera. I clicked. Dear Miss Ortiz, your online banking password was successfully changed at 8:42 a.m. If you did not request this change, please contact us immediately. I looked at the clock on the stove. 8:49. The kettle whistled. Decided it had waited long enough, and I stood up to turn off the gas. The kitchen remembered to be a kitchen, while I forgot, briefly, how to breathe with both lungs. I set the kettle aside and walked back to the computer with the casualness of a woman who has already decided she will not be made into a spectacle by panic. I clicked the next email. Dear Miss Ortiz, two-factor authentication phone, number updated at 8:44 a.m. Two-factor. Two-factor is my new religion. My granddaughter Maya arranged it for me last summer. It's like a second lock, she said, and I had nodded. Not because I understood all the gears inside the lock, but because I have lived long enough to know locks matter. The email explained that, for your convenience, the one-time security codes would now go to a different number, not mine, a neat string of digits I did not recognize. At 8:51, the third email arrived. Your contacts have been updated. They listed my accounts, checking, savings, the small little fund I call my lemon, money set aside for emergencies and frivolities only, which, at my age, can be as similar as next-door neighbors. My hands did not tremble. I don't tell you this to make myself brave. I tell you so you understand that sometimes bodies know what to do when minds are deciding. I stood up. I put the tea bag in the good mug. I poured the water. I watched it go from clear to purposeful brown. Then I did what any woman who has handled babies and budgets and funerals does. I made a list. Bank, call, lock, everything. Maya, tell, Elise, ask. That last one tasted like aspirin. Before I picked up the phone, I clicked my bank's login page. They had redesigned it last month in a font that looked like it wanted to comfort me to death. I typed my username, a silly, private thing that made sense to me, and my long, strong password, the one I keep on a small card in a blue dish on my desk. Before you cluck your tongue, let me say, the blue dish is a decoy. The card is nonsense. The real password lives in a little manager with a master key, only I know, written down once in a place no thief would think to look, inside a recipe card box, behind arroz con pollo, written in pencil so faint you'd need history on your side to read it. Incorrect username or password, the box said. I tried again, careful the way I am when threading needles and telling the truth. Again, incorrect. The fourth email arrived at 8:56, and I swear I could hear its shoes tapping as it entered the room. Alert! Unusual activity detected, large transfer pending. I did not read the amount. Not then. You can drown in details. I dialed the number on the back of my bank card, not the one in the email, because the world is full of pretend banks wearing real logos. A woman answered with a voice like the edge of a lake at dawn. Name? She asked. Mother's maiden name? Last transaction, you remember? Coffee at Harbor Bakery, I said, which made her sound like she was smiling. Everyone goes there. It's a communal sin. We walked through the ladders together. Date of birth, last 4 digits, favorite color. I lied. I always do. And then the part where we had to step off the path. I can't send a security code to your phone because the 2-factor number on file doesn't match, she said carefully, as if the sentence itself might bruise me. It matched at 8:43, I said. It matched for my entire adult life. We can escalate to a temporary identity verification, she said. We'll use a video call and knowledge-based questions. We did. I showed her my face, which did not look like a driver's license should. But that's the point of faces. I answered questions about mortgages from 27 years ago, as if I were gossiping about an old friend. When she finally said the words, "All right, Miss Ortiz, we have you," I felt my bones say thank you. Now, she said, about that pending transfer. It's been initiated, but we can flag it. Because you've indicated this is unauthorized, our fraud team will place a hold. How long do I have until pending becomes regrettable? I asked. A few hours, she said. You did the right thing, calling immediately. I didn't tell her I almost always do the right thing immediately. It felt like tempting God. We reset my password, so long it looked like a small poem, and we set a new 2-factor number. Mine, again. We added a note in the account big as a stop sign. No changes without in-person authorization by account holder. Miss Ortiz, she said, and I could hear the papers in her voice. I need to read you something. The device that initiated the changes earlier today was logged in from an IP associated with your household. Everything important in my life happened at a kitchen table, I said. That doesn't mean the table authorized it. I paused. Does your system show who registered the new number? She hesitated the way trained people do when the truth is sitting in their mouth like a stone. It was a mobile device ending in 33, she said. I knew those last 2 digits. Not because I'm omniscient, because my daughter, Elise, has used the same numbers since she was 23 and stubborn about being reachable. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. Even though those numbers closed a small door inside me. We hung up. The house listened. I made the tea wait until I remembered to want it. At 9:12, my phone rang. Not the bank, Elise. She led with the sentence that would wear groove into my day. Mother, she said, crisp as a white shirt. I tried to log in and fix your bank security. You keep choosing things you'll forget. So I put the codes to my number. You'll thank me later. She'll forget her password anyway. I could hear the unspoken words because I have been listening to my daughter all her life, especially to the sentences she thinks are too practical to count as unkindness. Elise, I said, and I said it like prayer, like a warning, like a woman who had carried that name through fevers and temper tantrums and a divorce that felt like stepping out of one storm and into another. Why? For your safety, she said. You almost got scammed last spring, remember? That man pretending to be tech support? You could have lost everything. I did not, I said. Maya hung up the call. I made soup while you texted me links to articles about elderly vulnerability. It's not a joke, she snapped. No, I said, and I made my voice smaller to make the truth larger. It isn't. She kept talking. She used all the tools she'd learned in the world where efficiency is a love language. Phrases like streamline and consolidate and controls. She said her own name twice in the third person, as if she were presenting the case for Elise to a boardroom. She reminded me about the power of attorney I signed after my fall. She said, like it was a bridge I should be grateful for. She said, finally, the part that twisted something old in me. She'll forget her password anyway, as if I weren't on the line listening. I will forget some things, I said. I will forget where I put the stamps and the name of that actor who always looks damp and pleasant. I will forget whether I told you a story already. And I will tell it again anyway because I like the way it sounds in my mouth. But I will not forget myself. Not even if you write over my name with a marker that says, "Help." "That's not what I'm doing," she said, exasperation coming off her like heat. "You changed my locks," I said, "and you handed the keys to yourself." "You gave me the keys," she said, and her voice wobbled once, the way a table does when one leg is shorter than the others. "After you fell, I gave you a key to the back door," I said, "not the deed." She hung up. She has always hung up when she was 8 and angry. Most of us are still the age we were when our families made us into shape. The house and I sat together a moment. The kettle had grown bored. The tea was cold. I poured it down the sink and watched the brown become a kind of river. Then I opened the drawer where a person who thinks she may be from a novel keeps her correspondence supplies. I found the business card for the lawyer I now call when it is time to be ceremonial about boundaries. Lena, the kind of woman who would make you feel better in a hurricane and worse if you were the wind. She answered on the second ring. "What did they do?" she said. Because she is efficient too, but on my side. "Changed my bank password," I said. "Changed two-factor, initiated a transfer, told me I'll forget anyway." The silence on the line was not empty. It was a shape. Focus makes its own sound. "Come at 11, she said. "Bring everything. Call the bank and ask them to place a fraud alert on your profile if they haven't already. We'll add a standing instruction that no security credential can be altered by an agent, and we'll revisit your POA. "I'll bring cookies," I said, because dignity is easier when there is sugar. Before I left the house, I called Maya. I didn't plan what I would say. I never do with her. Her hello is the kind of hello you remember when you need to catch your breath later. "Abuela?" she said, and I told her. Not the editorial, just the facts. She went silent in that way that isn't absence, it's attention. "I'm coming," she said. "I don't care if Mom says stay out of it. I never asked anyone to stay out of my life," I said. "I invited you in." She arrived with damp hair and a backpack that looked like it had traveled to countries where people eat mangoes in the street. She brought a USB drive, which she calls a dongle, a word I refuse to say, and a small notebook with stickers on the cover. "We're going to do a security tour," she said, "on every account. I'm going to see Lena," I said. "You can be my cavalry after." Lena's office smelled like lemon and printer ink, and the kind of coffee that doesn't lie. We sat at a table that could have been a dining room if it were kinder. I put the emails in order like a liturgy. Password change, two-factor change, contacts, transfer. A simple gospel of trespass. "We can issue a notice to the bank that your agent's authority is limited," she said, brisk in that way that feels like someone has put edges back where your life was trying to spill. Contrary to what adult children prefer to think, a power of attorney is not a blank check. The statute requires acting in the principal's best interest. "We'll put them on written notice that no digital credential can be altered by your agent, and that transfers beyond a certain threshold require your consent, in person or by live voice verification recorded by the bank." She wrote while she talked, the pen moving the way a dancer moves when she knows the floor. She slid a page to me. "This is a revocation of the broad POA. We'll replace it with a limited one. Named fiduciary with no authority over digital access or account credentials. We'll carve out bill pay in case you break a hip and can't reach the mailbox." "You're good at this," I said. And the way she smiled reminded me of my mother cutting a pie she'd made 100 times. Not pride. Competence that had found its correct altar. "I got good because of women like you," she said. "We all practice with each other." At the bank branch, I asked to see the manager. He had a tie with small boats on it, and a face that looked newly acquainted with the art of not taking things personally. We sat in a little glass room that made everyone outside look like fish. I do not like being the fish. I prefer being the water. But I behaved. "I've placed a fraud alert," I said. "I've verified my identity by video. I'm here to add instructions to my account that no changes to login credentials or two-factor phone numbers will be accepted from anyone except me. I also want all the logs from this morning. He gave me the half-minute every banker gives you when he's deciding whether you're the kind of woman who does what she says she'll do. Then he nodded. We can add a profile note, he said. We can also set a code word for in-branch interactions. Make the code word guava, I said, and he wrote it down without asking for the spelling. He knows how to spell fruit. I liked him better after that. He printed papers and I signed them, the pen heavy in my hand, the signature mine in the way a familiar road is yours even if other people drive it too. By the time I got home, Maya had turned my dining table into a command center. There were Post-its, but not the manic kind. The neat pastel kind that make you think order is possible. She had a list of every account I own: email, bank, utilities, photo sharing, library. Will rotate passwords, she said. Strong ones, unique ones, and will remove Mom's phone from any backup contact lists. She loves you, I said, because I'm stubborn like that. Your mother loves you. She thinks the world is a chessboard and the pieces will learn to behave if she places them squarely. I know, Maya said, but you're not a piece. We worked together, a choreography we've learned since she was young enough to sit on my lap and type her name with both hands at once, letters too big on the screen. We added an authenticator app the bank grudgingly supported, but preferred older people not to know about. We printed recovery codes and I put them in the recipe box behind arroz con pollo because I am nothing if not loyal to my own symbols. We set account alerts for transfers above numbers that, to me, still seem shockingly small. We changed my email password to a sentence that made me laugh when I said it out loud. Guava Sarah Delicious but not passwords, with a few symbols thrown in to confuse anyone who doesn't believe in punctuation. When we were done, the air felt cleaner. Maya put the stickers away. We made sandwiches, salt heavy the way only people who have just done something good for themselves can make them. She told me a story about her roommate's cat learning to open doors. He thinks a handle is just a puzzle, she said, and I nodded. All of life, handles and puzzles. Elise did not call that day. She sent messages, links to articles, a voice note where she said, liability, as if it were a relative she didn't like but had to invite to dinner. I didn't answer. I have learned that silence is sometimes the kindest form of boundary. 2 days later, she was on my porch. She didn't knock like a stranger. She knocked like a woman applying for the job of daughter she has always assumed she had tenure in. I did it for you, she said when I opened the door. Her hair was smooth in a way that made me think of things that never grew in the wild. Her coat, the kind that tries not to apologize for its price, hung on her like a promise she hadn't quite made. She stepped into the living room, nostrils flaring like the house smelled poor. You did it to me, I said, and I kept my voice as gentle as I could without lying. You forget, she said. You do. Last week you called me to ask for the code from your phone, and then you couldn't find the phone and we went in circles for 20 minutes. You don't keep up with updates. Mom, your brain is a beautiful house, but the wiring... She stopped. She realized what she'd said. She looked at the floor. I will forget more things, I said. If I grow very old and lucky, I will forget entire afternoons and the names of women I trusted and the word for that little thing that happens when bread gives up and becomes toast. But the more you replace my hands with yours, the less practice mine have. And then when I really need them, they'll be weaker. Do you see? She opened her mouth, closed it. The porch was suddenly full of an old smell. Damp wool, like the coats from my childhood, lined with another woman's care. You gave me power of attorney, she tried again. I revoked it, I said. I replaced it with something small and specific. The details are not a punishment. They're a map. Parts of my life where a sign should read, not a through street. You're going to get scammed, she said, frustrated. You believe people. I believe people can decide to be better than they were the last time I saw them, I said. Which is why you're standing in my living room. You think I'm a thief. The way her voice cracked on the last word made me want to wrap her in a blanket and feed her soup. But love without edges is soup that never sets. I think you forgot the difference between care and control, I said. I think it's easier for you to manage me than to love me where I am. I think the world has rewarded you for confusing efficiency with kindness. And I think you are not a thief. But I know what you did is called financial abuse in the pamphlets they hand out in places you don't go because you don't think those places are for you. She sat down. My couch looked like it wasn't sure it wanted her. She put her head in her hands. She cried a little. She always cries a little when she's been caught in a lie she told herself about being the hero in someone else's story. Mom, she said, and those 3 letters dragged behind them every accusation she had ever felt for the world not being soft enough to hold her. I want you to be safe in the Masters. I will be, I said, because I am choosing it for myself. I was going to move some money so it wouldn't be exposed, she said, sniffing. I didn't plan to take it. I was going to put it in a safe account. Your account, I said. Safer, she said, and I almost laughed, because sometimes you have to laugh at the way children pronounce certain words. But I didn't. I held her eyes and let mine tell the truth. Her safety plan is not my plan. Her definition of safe does not automatically earn a seat at my table. When she left, she hugged me. Careful. It felt like being measured. After she was gone, I made myself a second lunch and ate it like a person who has forgiven herself for being hungry. The bank's fraud department called me the next day to confirm that the transfer had been canceled and the flagged changes reversed. They'd added a note to my profile that would make it inconvenient for anyone, including me, to do anything quickly. Sometimes inconvenience is what safety looks like from the inside, the woman on the phone said. And I said, yes, in the voice I use when God decides to speak through strangers. I sent a letter to Adult Protective Services like last time, because I have discovered that bureaucracies are like small pets. They need feeding or they whine. I did not accuse, I described. Dates, times, actions. I included a line that said, my daughter is not a villain. She is a woman living in a story where control is mistaken for love. The caseworker called me 2 days later and thanked me for being the kind of elder who knows the difference between asking for punishment and asking for help. We file these so we can see patterns, she said. Sometimes a pattern is what saves the next person. I liked the way she said person, not client, not elder, person. Maya and I did a second round of the security tour. This time for the quiet places you forget have doors. The email address I use only to sign up for recipes that want to stalk me around the internet. The account with the photo printing website. My library card, which apparently also can be logged into with a password that the library swears is protected by dragons. We printed a small, neat list of what to do if I get locked out, if I lose my phone, if I forget the master password. We sealed it in an envelope labeled Open If Trouble. We put it behind tostones because that recipe is so greasy, even a thief would get suspicious. I also made an appointment with a lady named Jo at the credit union 2 towns over, where the chairs are ugly and the interest rates behave themselves. I opened an account there not because I'm abandoning my bank, no. I like the way the teller with the nose ring says my name, but because diversity is good for gardens and finances. I called it my sturdy pocket. I told exactly 3 people it existed. Myself, my lawyer, my granddaughter. Not because we're a secret circle, because we're a triangle, stable even in wind. Elise sent roses. They arrived the way roses arrive. Early enough to be awkward, and red enough to make you suspicious. The card said, for your peace, which made me a little angry. My peace is not a bouquet. It is a list in my handwriting and a binder with tabs and a specific instruction at the bank about guavas. But I put the roses in a vase anyway, because I don't like to punish flowers for the sins of the sender. Then the interesting thing happened, which is what always happens when a woman who has been convenient stops auditioning for everyone else's comfort. The world adjusted. Not too dramatically, not with ticker tape. Small adjustments. The bank manager learned to ask, "Would you like a private room to discuss this?" instead of calling things across the marble like a grocery store with delusions of grandeur. My insurance agent added me to the list of people she calls before changing the parts of policies that men like to change in June when they have opinions about storms. My doctor looked me in the eye and asked if I felt safe. And when I said, "Define safe," he tried, and he did a decent job. Elise called me after 3 days of silence that clinked. She did not apologize at first. People like her apologize with a schedule. "Mother," she said, voice flatter than a prayer rug, "I overstepped." "Yes," I said. "I did not intend harm. Intentions don't keep the lights on," I said. "Boundaries do." "Are you going to cut me off?" she asked, and I could hear, under the words, the small girl asking, "Will I still be invited to camp if I am bad at swimming?" "No," I said, "but I will not hand you the keys to my kitchen and ask you to tell me how to cook my soup." She breathed. "Tell me what you'll allow," she said. And in that moment, I loved her more than I had in years, because the first lesson of being a decent grown-up is learning how to let someone else's lines stay drawn. "I'll allow you to take me to the branch and sit while I tell them my mind again," I said. "I'll allow you to come to dinner and say thank you. I'll allow you to ask me to move money when you think it's smart. I'll allow myself to say no." She came to dinner wearing less of her armor. She said hello to the spider plant in the kitchen like it was new. We ate arroz con pollo because it seemed like a sign, and because I wanted to pay homage to the little pencil secrets hidden behind so much rice. We talked about nothing for 12 minutes, which is sometimes a kind of healing. Then she said, "I brought a list of elder financial safety practices," and I laughed so hard she looked offended. "Good," I said. "Bring your list. I'll bring mine. We'll compare. We will build the world between us from actual bricks, not just pretty words." Her list had bullet points. Mine had tea stains. Together, they covered the waterfront, placing alerts on credit files, appointing a trusted contact with banks who can be notified but cannot move a dime, naming a daily money manager for the tiny things without handing over your soul, printing statements because paper sometimes outruns memory, freezing your credit at all 3 bureaus and thawing it on purpose when needed, creating an ICE in case of emergency envelope with account numbers but no passwords. So if I stroke out, someone besides God knows who gets the electric bill. Setting small withdrawal limits at ATMs because nothing good happens there after 10 p.m. no matter your age. Adding my voice to my profile because I always say certain words the same way. We decided to add one more item neither list had: monthly tea. A scheduled time where I ask her to sit down and look at my accounts with me. Not because I can't, but because even queens need an audience. And because sometimes the bravest thing a mother and daughter can do is look in the same direction at the same numbers and agree to keep their hands in their own laps. She cried. This time, the tears felt like something that belonged to her and not to some performance she was trying on. When she left, she hugged me like the hug didn't have a task. Maya, of course, laughed at our lists. Then she added to them. A lesson for me on recognizing the small telltales of spoofed emails. Hover, hover, hover. And a lesson for Elise on the peculiarities of my heart, which no bank has a policy for, and which requires its own 2-factor, respect and time. Maya gave me a little key fob thing that generates numbers at random like a tiny magician. "It's old school," she said, "but it makes me feel better when phones get weird." We also did something that sounds small but felt seismic. We made a practice run. We pretended I'd forgotten a password. We walked through it without anyone panicking. We spoke out loud the rescue steps. We wrote in big letters on an index card, "You are not alone. and in small letters under it, "And you are still in charge." I put that card behind flan because that recipe always needs reassurance too. If I were different, perhaps I would tell you that after that day, everything became balm. It did not. The world continued its noise. I still sometimes have to ask the woman at the pharmacy to speak more slowly, and she still sometimes forgets. Elise still occasionally tries to call my bank a minute before I do, in the faint hope that the old scripts have been reapproved. They haven't. She is learning to accept the unsexiness of doing nothing. The lesson women like her hate most is the one where they learn that other people's lives are not projects. But life also gave me small prizes for my trouble. In the grocery store, the young cashier with blue hair called me Queen, and it didn't sound like a joke. At the branch, the boat tie manager started saving me the pens that actually write. The caseworker from the state sent me a pamphlet about elder financial safety where, on the back, they'd added a list of words to watch for, like "just sign here and we'll take care of it," and "it's too complicated for you." I pinned it to my bulletin board and added one more. Later. Later is a thief. One afternoon, weeks after, I sat on the porch with a cup of thick coffee that would make my doctor sigh and a slice of toast buttered to the edges the way my husband, Tomas, insisted even when the butter was too cold. The phone rang. It was a local number I didn't know. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I listened. A woman's voice, warm and hesitant. "Miss Ortiz," she said, "my name is Delia. I'm new at the bank. The manager told me you might be willing to come to our staff training and talk about what happened, so that we can do better. You don't always get to turn your day into a sermon, but when you do, you say yes." I made a batch of lemon bars with a crust that fights back, and I brought them at 9 a.m. on a Thursday to a conference room decorated with a poster of a dolphin who apparently believed in savings accounts. I told them about locks and blue dishes, and why the phrase "for your convenience" now makes me reach for my wallet. "Ask us," I told them, and I looked at the tellers, the young ones with nails like sherbet and the older ones with small patient scars. When a daughter comes in with a paper and a pen and a pretty smile that says, "This is what responsible families do," ask us, look at us, take us into the room with the nice chairs and the bad art, and ask, "What do you want?" We know, even when we are tired, even when everyone thinks we forgot. They clapped a little. It made me blush, which is ridiculous at my age and therefore felt exactly right. At home that evening, the light did that thing it only does in our town in September, where it slides into the living room sideways and makes the dust look like confetti. I thought about the day my daughter was born, how loudly she announced herself, and how ready I was to believe that God had given me a person I would be able to protect forever. I thought about the first time she lied to me, something about toothpaste and a gerbil, and how I had laughed into the sink and then stopped myself because mothers are supposed to be serious about lies. I thought about how love is a series of permissions we grant and rescind, and how maybe the bravest permission you can grant a woman is the permission to frustrate you with her stubbornness. I'm learning to love the days with very little drama. It's an art to relax your hand on the rope that isn't actually holding anything together. I walk in the mornings before the town decides what kind of day it's going to have. I bake on Tuesdays and give half to the neighbor who pretends not to expect it. I still write checks sometimes, slowly, in a hand that looks exactly like my grandmother's. I use my bank app without apology. I choose my passwords with laughter. I keep my blue dish a decoy. I visit the recipe box more than I have to, just to run my thumb over the place where secrets don't mind sharing space with cumin. If you are listening for advice, you always are, even when you say you aren't. Here is what I have, small and ordinary and tested. Make a list. Use your name out loud as if it were a key. Tell the bank your favorite fruit, and then tell them not to move anything unless you use it. Keep your daughter's love, but not her hands. Teach your granddaughter to hover over links as if they might bite. Put your rescue codes behind something delicious. Make a triangle of people who can hold a corner of your life when the wind gets personal. Freeze your credit like a popsicle. Unfreeze it only when you feel like offering someone a summer day. And when the world says with a kindness that feels like a bruise, she'll forget her password anyway. Say, maybe, but today is not that day. Then put on the kettle and teach it patience. It will listen. Most things do, when you insist on being the person who owns the stove. Weeks later, Elise sat with me at the dining table, where so many arguments and soups have begun. She took my hand without the slight pressurizing she usually adds to make sure I know she's steering. "I made a mistake," she said. "I thought getting there first was the same as taking care. I am sorry. I am learning to wait." "I accept," I said. "I will always accept you when you bring me the truth." We ate flan with too much caramel because some things should be excess. She looked at the recipe box and smiled. "Is that where the master key lives?" she asked, teasing. "No," I said. "It's where my favorite dessert does, and a few of my better decisions." We laughed, and the house took a breath, and I felt the surprising, ordinary peace of a woman who has shored up the shoreline and now can sit and actually watch the waves. My daughter tried to lock me out of my online bank. She said, she'll forget her password anyway. And for a moment, I was tempted to prove her wrong by remembering everything. But I don't need to. I only need to remember myself. And that, even in a world that loves a new login more than it loves a grandmother, is a password my hands know by heart. Bezig met Nadenkin.